like this. I like this. I like this.
So this time around, we're going to be making a jerk pulled oxtail. If you've not used oxtail before, again, it's probably one of the more common, cheaper cuts that people will see. It's a very traditional thing to use in the UK and, to be honest, in dishes all around the world. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this and cook it in a Dutch oven. Thank you to Petromax for sending me this absolute beauty. We're going to get that in there nice, low and slow until it can just be pulled away from the bone in a nice jerk stew. So usually when you buy oxtail, it's going to be bound up like this because you get some bigger parts and you get some smaller parts. So if you take the bit of butcher's twine off, you'll see you can get some really small parts which are towards the end of the tail, as you can imagine, and then you get these big pieces that are a lot fattier, but equally they've got more meat. So there's a lot of flavour sitting in that fat that we want to really unlock. So I'm not cutting any of that off. What I'm going to do is, we've already started the fire over here. The Dutch oven is going to sit at the base of this Weber kettle. Going to get it nice and hot around, pull the temperature back a little bit so we can get a nice sort of slow cook going on. But what we're going to do, we'll brown them off at the bottom just with a little bit of oil, and then we'll leave it with the lid off to take in some of that smokiness from the barbecue. I'm not going to add any wood at this point because, to be honest, I'm going to put some liquid in there as well. In this case, I'm going to put some porter, which is a nice dark beer, and we're going to just let it do its thing with the heat. So instead of smoking them, we're going to let it with the lid on about halfway through, and then we're just going to let these get to a point where they can pull apart to a just absolutely stunning consistency. So that's the plan. It's because of that fat, it takes so long to melt that down. You know, it takes a long time to break it all down, and you've got quite a lot of sinewy stuff around around the actual bone, so you need to break it down. And once you break it down, it's just similar to it's a similar kind of texture to like a cheek, in the way that you get that kind of gelatinous, beautiful, like, oh.
I like this. I like this. I like this. I like this.
So, first of all, what I'm going to do, I have got the Dutch oven surrounded in a nice healthy fire. What I'm now going to do is add a little bit of oil to the pan. We're going to brown these off, and then we're going to add some liquid. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to add a porter, and then we'll just leave that to kind of just cook down a little bit before we put the lid on and add any other ingredients. But what we'll do is we're going to cook these down till they're almost, well, until they're pretty much falling apart to add anything else. So it's all going to be about the beef, the stewing liquid, and really kind of pull the dish together before we add anything else. So some of the veg will stay a little bit crunchy, it'll stay just a variety of textures rather than just having a big slushy mess at the end of it.
I like this. I like this. I like this.
Okay, so the beef is now in the barbecue. It's taking in some of that atmospheric smoke. I'm going to pull the temperature back a little bit now because we just wanted to brown all that meat off. And then what we'll do is we will put the lid on and we'll let that just run after we've added some liquid. So what I'll do is I'm going to draw this heat back now. Like I say, get it to about sort of 200, there or thereabouts, because it's quite high at the moment. Then I'm going to add the liquid, and then we'll really sort of drag it back for a nice low and slow. So next stage is to add a little bit of liquid. It has now been in the barbecue with the lid on for about 3 hours, there or thereabouts. So I'm going to add some of this. This is Timothy Taylor's Poulter's Porter. It's a beautiful porter, 4.8%, so it's a bit on the stronger side. What I'm going to do, add that to the Dutch oven just to make sure it doesn't dry out, and then we're going to stew that down even further. Then I'll start looking to add some of the other ingredients, which I will show you shortly.
I like this.
Okay, so we are now 5 hours in, and it's time to start thinking about the other ingredients that are going to go into this dish. So we've got our veg, we've got some beautiful heritage tomatoes which are grown locally, we've got some green and red pepper, we've got some coriander and some chilli which will be used to finish it, and we'll pop some leeks in there as well. Like I say, the whole idea of this is to have a different texture gradient in there, so it's not all about mushy kind of textures. I want some crunch off the peppers, I want some freshness from the tomatoes. And just as a little bit of a cheat as well, I am going to add some of this rice. So this is the usual 2-minute supermarket rice that we probably live on when we're not pretending to be Instagram heroes, and it's a lifesaver. 2 minutes in with the oxtail is going to be just enough to finish this dish off perfectly.
I like this. I like this. I like this.
So final stage of this dish, I'm going to add some jerk seasoning. This particular one is made up of thyme, allspice, salt, pepper, garlic, onions, and usually something quite spicy. In this case, I know there's definitely some habanero in there, but you haven't really got to painstakingly put this together. Find a good rub or seasoning and just stick with it. Again, because otherwise you're going to be spending quite a lot on individual ingredients. The most important part of this process is just being patient. Oxtail doesn't take a lot of technical ability, like I've just hopefully shown. It just takes time. So get yourself down to a nice low temperature, realistically in the region of around about 120, 130, and let the heat do its work over a long period of time. This entire cook will, once we finish, take roughly around about 6 hours. But it's worth every minute. You've got to wait for those flavours to develop. You've got to pull everything you can out of the fat and into the rest of the dish. But like I say, it's not particularly difficult. It just takes time. As a little bit of a bonus, I'm going to add a quick glug of this beautiful rum. This is by Moonshine and Fuggles in Shropshire. And to be fair, it's delicious. So it's smoked, spiced, and basically I just love rum. So I'm just going to pop this through. Give it a bit of a stir around, and it's going to give us a nice smoky and, to be honest, quite a strong alcohol flavour at the end, so I don't want to cook too much of this out. I want a bit of that rum.
I like this. 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 I like this.
Right, so we've pulled the Dutch oven. Thanks again to Petromax for sending me this for this episode. Absolutely lifesaver. It's enabled me to be able to do this dish to the absolute best of my ability, and it's really got the best out of this oxtail. So the last thing that we need to do, as with every episode, get Clarky in here to try it, see if we can get him into a position where he will say oxtail is nice. If we can do that, then it's a win. Come on.
I'm actually looking forward to this one. This is not one of the
more challenging ones. There you go, it's probably enough to try, yeah? See, for me, the joy in oxtail as well is to really sort of get your face into the bone anyway. Genuinely, I just like...
That is what she said.
It's hot.
It's looking really hot. Well, yeah.
Good?
Oh yeah, all of that. It's like the most complex one pot dish I can imagine, but the flavours, yeah.
Okay, sounds like another win to me.
Love it.
Wicked. Thank you. So, that's another win. So, game changed?
Game changed.
Game changed.
The flavours of that as well, like it keeps coming.
But I put the rum in late as well to give you that kind of lift, and I want you to taste the alcohol in it. You know, that and the porter. Obviously, the porter gives a richness throughout, but then at the end, I like that little alcohol hit just to make you, you know, wake you up. So there we have it, jerk oxtail, stewed to perfection, some lovely local veg, heritage tomatoes, the porter, the lot. It's come together to make a really, really interesting and complex dish, but it's super, super simple to make. Just to recap how we did it. So we browned off the oxtail at the very beginning on a slightly higher heat, around about 200 degrees. Then we knocked that heat back, put the lid on with the porter and really sort of stewed that down for, you know, 3 to 4 hours. So the whole cook took 6.5 hours, but that last half an hour is the key point where you add all the other fresh ingredients to try and keep some of that texture, some of those aromatics as well, and then finish with the coriander and the chili. So, have you tried oxtail? If so, how did you cook it? Let us know down in the comments, and maybe we can try that next time.